Totally Football Show. Today, Ange gets fresh legs. League Cup first legs have Chelsea looking on their last ones, and lots more besides as we round up all the midweek news and look ahead to this weekend and half a round of Premier League action, plus the start of AFCON 23 and more in this Totally Football Show. Listener, thank you for making us your audio companion of choice for the next, I think we're going to be here for probably about an hour or so, but however much of it you want. Stay tuned right to the end, though, because we've got Maher Mezahi coming up with a pretty special AFCON 23 preview that we recorded a short time ago, and it features great AFCON info and some amazing geographical facts that you can entertain your friends and family with. A lot of those coming from Big Jack Lang, who's here with us in the studio. All right, Jack.
James, hi.
Good to see you. Duncan Alexander's also present.
Hello.
Hello, Duncan. And on the big screen right now, all the way from Manchester, Carl Anker.
Hi, James.
Hi. As I say, AFCON coming up later on. Lots going on this weekend. Half a round of Premier League action. There's Asian Cup getting underway as well with the likes of Qatar, Lebanon and Australia, India. But we're going to begin today. I think, first of all, we should say very best wishes to Sven-Göran Eriksson, because this Thursday, I think everyone saw the news, Sven revealing on Swedish radio that he's suffering from terminal cancer. So, our thoughts are with Sven, a terrific chap and a man with a pretty extraordinary footballing career. Now, 5 games to look ahead to in the Premier League this weekend. This is because this is the Premier League's version of a winter break. Matchday 21 getting spread out across the next 2 weekends. So the 5 games this time around, all of which will be on telly, are on Friday, Burnley Luton, 18th against 19th. A Saturday lunchtime at Chelsea Fulham. The 5 games this time around, all of which are on telly, are on Friday, Burnley Luton. Saturday lunchtime at Chelsea Fulham. Tea time Saturday, Newcastle Man City. And then Sunday, 2 games, Everton Villa at 2. And then Man United against Spurs at 4:30. All of them are available to watch. If you could only see one this weekend, which one is it? And why is it Burnley Luton, Jack Lang?
Took the words right out of my mouth, James. I may well make alternate plans for Friday night.
No way.
What?
But it's 18th against 19th, Jack. It's a battle for survival.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, says more. This says more about me than it does the fixture. But being able to watch all of the rest,
yeah,
5 is a lot for me.
Okay.
And I know that
I'm not saying you have to watch 5. Skip by all means this Man United Spurs business on Sunday and focus on 2. No, because Luton in terrific form late. Not all results have gone their way, but they've been in some games against really, really tough opposition. Man City, Arsenal, narrowly lost to Chelsea. They did beat Newcastle and Sheffield United. They did lose to Burnley back in October at Kenilworth Road, and what was
a forgotten fixture because it was delayed, wasn't it? Because Luton's ground had to be.
So it was.
I was going to say improved, but I'm not sure it was technically improved. But yeah, that was a bit probably their worst performance of the season. But yeah, I mean Burnley at home, they've lost 9 out of 10, which is
9 out of 10 at home.
Tough place to go, no. But then they have got a weird thing where they're the most wasteful team inside the box this season, but the best, most clinical team from long range. Their hatred of the XG model is quite upsetting.
Break that down for me again. They have the worst shot conversion rate inside the box.
Yeah.
But the best one outside the box.
Yeah. So
what does that mean?
Well, they're good at shooting, or shots from long range have gone in, and inside the box less so. It's not you don't want it that way round. It's not.
Okay.
It's a statistical outlier like Burnley's season.
Clarets haven't beaten the Hatters at Turf Moor since, Carl, March 1995. Do you know what was number 1 back then?
I'm gonna guess the Spice Girls.
You can guess what you want. You're never going to get it. Never going to get it. I didn't even know this record existed, frankly.
March 95.
March 95. Jack?
I will take you at your word that I'm never going to guess it.
Okay. It was a comic relief single called Love Can Build a Bridge,
Oh yeah.
Do you remember this?
I do. Yeah.
Do you remember who it was? Who sang it?
No, just a load of celebs and singers and that.
No, you got Cher, Chrissy Hind, and Nana Cherry.
Oh.
It's an extraordinary triumvirate of vocal talents. Anyway, of limited relevance to this game this weekend.
And also, I think can Love build a bridge? Not sure.
Well,
I'd go with
you're being a bit literal,
Kingdom Brunel myself.
Right. Yeah. So, but a huge game this, 18th against 19th, and Luton with a chance, with a victory in this game, to jump out of the bottom three. Remember, they've got that game in hand as well, because Everton, who are in 17th spot, are only a point above them. Everton themselves have a big game this weekend. As mentioned, they are going to be hosting Aston Villa. Perhaps one that you'll find more tempting, Jack Lang.
I think so. A touch, yeah. I think this should be quite a good game. Villa seem to have slightly run out of gas.
Really?
Yeah, maybe. A couple of more recent performances have been less impressive. Obviously, Everton have got Dominic Calvert-Lewin available after his suspension was overturned, which is good. But it's interesting with Everton, just as they kind of seem to have cancelled out the points deduction, and everyone's thinking, wow, people are doing that thing where they're comparing where they would have been, they'd have been above Man United, etc. That they kind of seem to have spluttered out.
3 defeats on the spin.
3 defeats on the spin.
9 points down the drain. One less than 10.
That's good. That's very good stats from you. So yeah, kind of two teams whose confidence will be lower than it may have been a few weeks ago. So hopefully that will translate into a good match rather than one dominated by fear.
Indeed. Ru Lang says Everton seemed like a really tough test for Villa. I had a bizarre dream, says Ru Lang, where Gary Lineker was praising Nathan Patterson at length, who has been great, and I probably subconsciously felt, continues Ru Lang, that this was going under the radar. But if he does something, I think he means Gary at this point, I'll be freaked out. Well, tune in to Match the Day to see how eerily prescient
if you can shape the future, then getting someone to praise Nathan Patterson feels a slight waste of that power. I don't know.
No, not necessarily shaping the future, but feeling the future. I think more like. But what do you think about Ru Lang's contention that Everton will be a tough test for Villa? Carl, what do you think about Ru Lang's contention that Everton represent a tough test for Villa, Duncan?
Villa love a high line this season. They're the most offside-provoking team on the continent. We saw Everton go to Spurs, who are not dissimilar to Villa in a lot of ways, and they lost to Spurs, but they pretty much outplayed them. And Sean Dyche loves that diagonal ball into the space. I think that's where the game can be won or lost. And I think, as Jack said, DCL is available, and I think that is probably quite important because he is very good at utilising that space and holding the ball up and bringing others into play. So I do think it's a tough game for Villa, but at the same time, Villa's attacking propensity under Emery has got them a lot of results, and
second in the league.
Yeah, and it's this is this fixture has been going on since football began,
really?
And you can kind of drop in at any point, and it's probably a 6 out of 10 game at any point. So I think this is likely to be above that.
Above
average.
a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. So.
What out of 10 would you give Chelsea Fulham, the early match on Saturday?
Well, it's the most one-sided derby in English history, isn't it? Fulham they've got a 10% win rate against Chelsea, which is the lowest of any kind of combination of fixture in English league history.
Derby or otherwise.
Yeah. So, but
there's
again,
no team that has a win percentage that's lower against a given opponent
that have played each other 50 or more times.
Okay.
Which is reasonable over hundreds of years of football. But again, confounding the past, I think Fulham are pretty good at the moment. They outplayed Liverpool for quite a long time in midweek, and they deservedly beat Arsenal the other week. So yeah, I think Chelsea continue to have problems. So if Fulham are going to record a rare win against their neighbours, then this could be it.
All right. Do you know when the last time that Fulham did beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge? Let me tell you, it was October 1979. Both teams were in the second tier back then. Do you know what was number one in October?
Was it Love Can Build a Bridge?
Wasn't.
No.
A Stamford Bridge, perhaps. No. One Day at a Time by Lena Martell.
Did someone for Christmas give you a subscription to like numberonesonThisDay.com?
I'm borrowing Jonathan Pearce's special well-thumbed intro writing copy.
Jonathan Pearce, he was the commentator for the Chelsea-Preston game in the Cup last weekend, and he was dropping a lot of history chat in there, which is I'm not averse to.
Right.
There was a lot of Preston North End were good in the 1880s chat.
Nice.
Fair play.
Yeah, a little bit of context. A little bit of context. Excellent, Carl. You're thinking both these two teams, Chelsea and Fulham, lost narrowly in the League Cup semi-final first legs midweek. Did you watch either of these?
I did indeed. I was certainly a lot more impressed by Fulham's exploits than Chelsea's. Chelsea remain Chelsea, which is hard to explain. A team that is... They're a theoretical football team at this point in time. I think they should be eventually good and find a way over the triumph over Middlesbrough, but I have no idea how they managed to lose that game. Whereas Fulham's game plan was really good. They very much allowed Liverpool to have possession in the non-lethal parts, and they broke on them very, very quickly. I thought if it hadn't been for Decordova-Reid's slightly wasteful approach in the 63rd minute, they could have got themselves a goal and eventually got themselves a famous win at Anfield, but it wasn't to be.
Wasn't to be. 2 goals in 3 second-half minutes by Liverpool, courtesy of Curtis Jones, Cody Gakpo. Lovely flick. Would you call that a flick? Side hit, side foot.
Tuck, I'd say.
Tuck, yeah, that's nice, yeah. Giving Liverpool the advantage, but only half-time, really, in this semi-final second legs in a fortnight. Do you regard Fulham's prospects of turning that around better or worse than Chelsea's, who had a 1-0 defeat at the Riverside to mid-table championship side Middlesbrough? This despite, as Carl was hinting, having 72% of possession and 18 shots to Boro's 6. What do you think, Carl? You saw this game as well.
Yeah, I think Chelsea are more likely to go through than Fulham at this point in time. But again, I'm sort of judging things on the theoretical things for Chelsea at this point in time. They had a lot of shots. A lot of them were from outside the box. I think 5 different players had outside the box efforts that I can only really call speculative. Whereas Middlesbrough's game plan was really, really good. Yeah, and Michael Carrick was smart to make changes, even though he lost 2 players to injury early on in the first half as well. So, ooh.
I thought Chelsea were awful, really bad. So, like as Carl said, Middlesbrough lose their best, their main attacking threat after 3 or 4 minutes. So they might have been a bit decaffeinated after Emmanuel Latte's exit. But yeah, honestly, Chelsea, they just
should Boro have had a chapeau on that, but should Boro have had a penalty, and would they had VAR been in operation?
Which was that?
For the tackle on Latte.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
taking out Latte, if you like.
Yeah, I think it was a reasonable shout. Basically, Chelsea. The goal looked bad because it was a ball over the top, and Isaiah Jones outran Levi Colwill, but Moses Caicedo just going completely to sleep. He was tracking the run of Hackney, and then suddenly he wasn't. But yeah, I just cannot get my head around so many of Chelsea's players. I thought Raheem Sterling was really bad. I thought Mudryk, when he came on, was absolutely awful. The bench, I know they've got loads of injuries, but spending that much money and you've got basically Mudryk, Broja, and then 9 children I've never heard of. I cannot really fathom what's going on, and it's just quite funny.
Had you heard of Hayden Hackney before Tuesday night?
It sounds made up, doesn't it?
No, I think it's a splendid name, but is it a footballer? For me, if you said I bought a new folding bicycle, it's Hayden Hackney, I'd have gone, that sounds splendid. But it's a lovely name, Hayden Hackney. Full credit to his parents. Yeah. And to him for that goal.
Just on Chelsea and their, relentless pursuit of players that doesn't really work. One of the best players the following night for Fulham was Willian, who looked great. And Chelsea. I'm not convinced by the Fernandes-Caicedo partnership at all, really. And they've got Lavry as well to come in, but none of those players are playing well. You would expect by now some sort of cohesion between them, but it's not coming. And I think it felt like this game was a bit of a line in the sand for a lot of Chelsea fans. They've been quite supportive of Pochettino up until now, but I think there's the classic kind of, I saw a lot of people demanding John Terry was on the bench because then the players would care. And I think that's the idea that the players don't care is nonsense, but they're not playing well, and it does feel like the experiment's slowly drifting away from a sort of positive outcome.
Right. Thiago Silva, I think, having words with some of the travelling supporters who were vocal in their displeasure at the 1-0 scoreline at the final whistle of that first leg. Do you share Carl's optimism that Chelsea have this at the Bridge next time? And what about Saturday's game with Fulham?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see them improving drastically anytime soon. They seem to be really waiting for Christopher Nkunku to come back, and obviously he's done so and then quickly picked up another injury. I mean, it's the same thing with Lavia. Like, Lavia came back finally, played substitute appearance the other day and is out again. So until they get some of these players back, I mean, just so many players in that team are dying to be removed from the team. Like playing so badly, they need to be replaced. There's no one ready to come in for them. So until the bit of the squad depth translates into competition for places, I wouldn't be very confident at all in them beating Boro, to be honest. And it's the same for Fulham.
They've got the fourth best XG in the Premier League this season, better than Man City and Villa and Arsenal. And yet they've massively underperformed it because they waste chances and they don't have play. I mean, Nicholas Jackson's been hot and cold, but he has at least been reasonable at scoring, and he's now at AFCON, so that's another blow for them. So I wouldn't be convinced they can beat Fulham, and I wouldn't be convinced they can turn it around against Middlesbrough.
Okay, 2 more Premier League games coming up after this, as we touch on Newcastle, Man City, and 2 more Premier League games after this, as we touch on Newcastle, Man City, and Man United's clash with Spurs. Great to hear that from you, Duncan, a man who tipped Chelsea to finish second this season.
Second in the bottom half, 12th.
Newcastle, Man City, only 3 teams in the Premier League have no players going to either the Asian Cup or the Africa Cup of Nations. 2 of them facing each other at St James's Park Saturday in the shape of Newcastle and Man City. The other one, do you know who the other one are? Anybody? Does anybody know who the other one is, rather? Other team with no players going to Asian or...
Luton?
No, it's Burnley.
Yeah.
Well.
Of course not.
All right. Who's looking forward to Newcastle, Man City? Man City, perhaps. Especially because they've got Kevin De Bruyne coming back, and looks like Erling Haaland is shaping up for a return as well. The Kevin De Bruyne news, which obviously saw him come on in the FA Cup and assist moments later. How bad is that for the rest of the league? How bad is that for Phil Foden, who's really been enjoying things in his absence?
I think Phil Foden should be fine. This 10 or more central role Foden's been playing in is good and is interesting if you're of England persuasion, but the return of Kevin De Bruyne doesn't necessarily mean Foden won't be playing. It's just Foden will go to the position Guardiola thinks is best, which is out wide.
The return of Haaland is probably more significant for Foden because that pushes Alvarez back into kind of number 10 contention as well. De Bruyne's assist, just the nature of it, was a reminder of something that City have been missing, which is that kind of classic City left-footed attacking midfielder waits for De Bruyne to run round the outside and cut it back. The classic City goal over the last 5 or 6 years, which, I don't think any of the other midfielders really offer that kind of lung-busting run capacity that De Bruyne has, which is nice. And, plus the fact that neither Mateo Kovacic or... what's Nunes' first name? Thank you. And also the fact that neither Mateo Kovacic or Mateus Nunes have really, pulled up trees since the move. Núñez has had a lot of chances in recent weeks, and I think he has some of the same athleticism, but obviously not the same influence on games. So yeah, from City's perspective, obviously great news. But I agree with Carl. I think Foden is going to keep playing a major part, even if it is out slightly wider.
I mean, there's also getting both Haaland and De Bruyne back is interesting, because obviously De Bruyne is right-footed and whips it in, and it tends to be slightly easier chances for Haaland on his left foot, which obviously Foden is left-footed. So, you know, Haaland's not had a bad scoring season this season, but I imagine his scoring rate will go up in the spring.
Eddie Howe's Newcastle have lost 5 of their last 6 league matches. You mentioned Fulham's record against Chelsea. Newcastle have only won 1 of their last 32 Premier League meetings with Manchester City, although they did actually beat them this season already there at St James's in the Carabao Cup. Anything they can draw from that? Because they've had some, every now and then they do. Oh, sorry, I'm going to say something really stupid, so I'm not going to say it. Okay, anything they can draw from that? I don't remember that game. Does anyone remember the game?
Get in a time machine and try and get... No.
Okay. Although they did beat them already this season at... They did beat them already this season at St James's Park in the Carabao Cup. We've seen them pull off some very special performances at St James's.
Yeah, the draw last season was sort of the coming out of this current Newcastle. You know, that was when I think people realised that they were better than we thought they were going to be, and City came back in that game, but it was a very entertaining match. And historically these games between these teams, Sergio Aguero used to get like 8 goals per match, and they were always pretty good. So yeah, good clash.
Nice. All right, been a big name putting pen to paper for Man United in recent weeks. Of course, that's Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who might actually be there for this game on Sunday. Have we seen any concrete changes yet? When do you think we will, and what are they likely to be? And generally, has the mood shifted at all at Old Trafford, Carl?
The INEOS deal is still yet to be ratified, but Sir Dave Brailsford and Sir Jim Ratcliffe have been sighted in and around Carrington, having handshakes with various people at Manchester United. I think the most noticeable change on Man United fan base is marginal gains is the new buzzword. At Manchester United, everyone seems to have adopted Sir Dave Brailsford's approach to marginal games, which is, depending on who you talk to, finding incremental changes that make things better, or jiffy bags. I'll let Duncan continue that, because he's a better cyclist than I am.
It's the thing that's funny for me at the moment with the INEOS at United thing is that obviously, and rightly so, given what's gone before, people are excited about a new era and a better approach to everything, from transfers to squad building to whatever. But at the moment, the INEOS Grenadier cycling team are very much like Manchester United in that they've taken their eye off the ball in recruitment. They've got a few aging stars who they're sort of still reliant on. So it's quite funny that they are apparently coming in to bring a new era.
Had a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
It's difficult because obviously a lot of the things that Brailsford has been lauded for, and a lot of if you go through all the book quotes and whatnot, and the things that he is talks of being very, very effective in British cycling, are things that are regarded as relatively par for the course of any top European super club now. So recruiting well, doing proper scouting, this management concept of aces in places where you make sure there are complementary partnerships in all important parts of your organisation. These are things that you expect of a club like Bayern Munich, or of a Liverpool, or of a Manchester City. So it's all well and good in saying, yep, this is what's happening to Manchester United in 2024. But you're going, your crosstown rivals have been doing that for however many years. How on earth? So yeah, this is the long road to competency, I think, is what's now being said.
And the reason Team Sky had such success so quickly, took a year or two, but was that they were doing stuff, to Carl's point, that other teams weren't doing. So that did give them advantage. So United playing catch-up isn't necessarily
So
the same.
Don't expect any massive changes overnight.
Just a question to Carl. Do you see, within Man United's structure, do you see sufficient agility to change quickly if that's what Ratcliffe and Brailsford ask for? Or, because from the outside it looks like a club that has been slow to change. So can they accelerate now, do you think?
It will take a lot of, you keep using this term, audits. We know that one of the big four companies has been requested by Sir Jim Ratcliffe to look through Manchester United to see if there's any ways to streamline the organisation in order to make them more agile and make that turn. So I don't think any sort of huge change can happen between now and the end of the season, but the organisation at the start of next could conceivably be different to the one that's gone before. I'm not particularly optimistic about anything going on at Manchester United right now because tactically on the field, Erik ten Hag is particularly stubborn in a way that makes it very, very difficult to see United go from this sort of 6th, 7th Europa League-ish level to a top 5 contending team.
Tottenham very much in the top 5 at the moment, as mentioned, with all sorts of fresh legs for Ange Postecoglou this weekend. Timo Werner, Radu Dragozin could both be making their debuts. Charlie Eccleshare underlining how big that would be. It would be as many January signings making their Spurs debut in January as they've seen in the previous 12 years, because of course they traditionally do their business so late on in the month. They've also got Mickey van der Ven, who looked outstanding in the opening months of the season, back available again. Christian Romero could be back. All very, very exciting for Spurs fans. Everyone's got a Timo Werner hot take, Jack. What's yours?
I think it's quite exciting.
Good.
Obviously he was pretty rubbish at Chelsea. There's no getting around that. And he's been fairly average since going back to Leipzig. Like, he hasn't been a starter. They've got a lot of forwards, and he very quickly tumbled down the pecking order. But given the way Postecoglou likes to play, given the resources that Spurs have, that's, Son is away for one thing, but they aren't overloaded with attacking options.
Right.
Obviously he can play out wide, but he's a very different option to Richarlison up front.
What is better about Ange's football rather than, say, the one he was experiencing at Chelsea?
Well, I think it's about speed, pressing, intensity. They like to do quick transitions. I just think, you could have said some of those things about Tuchel's football as well, but right. I just think he, I don't know, there's a kind of intensity and almost chaotic elements sometimes to Spurs' football in a good way that I think could be right up his avenue.
Carl, were you motioning you wanted to come in on that?
Yeah, Tuchel got more out of Werner than any other Chelsea manager, because I think he understood that Werner needed best to play in a 2. So trying to play him with Kai Havertz worked. It wasn't a perfect time at Chelsea, but Tuchel definitely managed to get something out of Werner to put the frighteners on Pep Guardiola's Manchester City more than once, in being just this latent near offside threat at all points in time. And we've seen from Postecoglou that he likes his strikers to play right on the line of offside to really be that latent threat. So that could work. You may have noticed that I put an inflection when I said there. Could work. The thing about Werner is he's a very boom or bust, very, very confident striker. He's not necessarily a striker with a go-to skill move necessarily. He's very, very quick in one direction. That's how he gets. That's how he gets a lot of his goals. But in terms of putting disguises on finishes in order to beat a goalkeeper, doesn't necessarily work. So when he's hot, he's really hot, because he's not thinking about how do I put the ball in the back of the net in the way that you can see him do, or did see him do a lot at Chelsea. If you're a Spurs fan, you're hoping he doesn't get caught from 2 or 3 VAR offside decisions, and then you see that slow motion look where he just goes, oh no, and he drops.
He obviously had that miss for Chelsea against Leeds where it was literally on the goal line. This is why you don't get 1.0 XG for any shot, because sometimes they miss. But a bit like sometimes when you're cooking and there's an ingredient and you're like, well, that's not doesn't do anything.
A bay leaf, for example.
Yeah, but actually it's quite important. I don't know if bay leaves can be that important, but anyway.
Oh, they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Werner's like that. I think he not only he makes other players look better as well because more space appears because he's, as Jack was saying, he's just so chaotic. It's and I think if you thought of one team in the Premier League right now where that would help, it is probably Tottenham. So I think, and make if he plays, a debut away at Manchester United, who apparently were also vaguely interested in signing him, has got a narrative pouring out of the of the casserole pot.
I think also sometimes we risk focusing too much on tactics and not enough on personal relationships. Postecoglou has already shown at Spurs that he is the kind of coach that can coax performances out of players who weren't doing well. Richarlison is an obvious example, but Bissouma is another one. Maybe Werner just needs to be told, go out there and run at him, mate.
Very
so,
nice.
Maybe that's enough.
Okay.
One thing for narrative, I have been working with Liam Tharm on Tottenham Hotspur's propensity for scoring cutback goals, and two, Manchester United's weakness to conceding cutback goals. So expect cutbacks on Sunday.
Okay.
Not just from Sir Jim Ratcliffe.
Nice.
There you
Very
go.
nicely done. Very nicely done. Andre Onana is apparently going to be featuring for this game. Originally, he was planning to play in this match and then jet off and feature in Cameroon's AFCON opener against Guinea just 24 hours later. Essentially, do a Mark Hughes, I think that's the terminology. The Cameroon Football Federation mysteriously said, "Nah, Onana, you're all right. We'll get on without you." So I don't know what that means, but yeah. So
It's
he'll
rather
be
embarrassing.
fully focused then.
It's rather embarrassing. He should not be still with Manchester United right now. He should be with his national team camp now. Asterix. You do get the sense part of it he doesn't really want to be there due to this agreement he had with Besson of the World Cup and the odd situation he's got with Samuel Eto'o as well, and then possibly the situation he's got with the president of Cameroon as well. But it is remarkable that a goalkeeper has decided to delay his journey to AFCON this far back, and then still expecting to start as their number one goalkeeper. It also is, I think it's, if you're Altay Bayindir, Manchester United's number two goalkeeper, this is just quite embarrassing that such exploits have been made to keep Onana here. It's a very strange situation because statistically Onana is a good Premier League goalkeeper. He's outperforming his expected goals on target, and he's one good reason why Manchester United's mediocre defence isn't getting worse. And yet it's hard to shake this connotation that it's all a bit of a farce, isn't it?
I think mainly because of his kind of Champions League headline generating mishaps. But yeah, so he should be between the posts for Spurs visit on Sunday. We'll be getting on to what the Cameroon players who will be featuring and everybody else in AFCON can expect in AFCON 23 very, very shortly when we preview that competition with Maher Mezahi. That's after this.
Where's that?
Yeah, did I
Just
mention
a one
this
line,
again?
we could probably add that.
Oh yeah.
Just on Carl's point about Onana being good, he's on plus 3.8 goals prevented, which is the fourth best in the Premier League this season. Who's top? Vicario with 6.9. So
Very nice.
we're expecting goals this game. It could be a goalkeeper tour de force.
Listener, AFCON 23 starts this weekend. Intriguingly, in 2024, of course, the first game featuring the hosts, Ivory Coast, on a Saturday. They're going to be up against Guinea-Bissau. Very nice. Our very special friend Maher Mezahi joins us now ahead of his trip out there. Maher, how have you been?
I've been good since we last spoke, Jim. I have a little daughter. She's 9 months old. So I've been dealing with
What's
that.
her name?
Yeah, thank you. Her name is Marjan, which means
What's her name?
coral. Coral in Arabic. It's a very Mediterranean name. She was born in Marseille, so I think it's nice.
Excellent. Well, congratulations to you and your family and to... how do I pronounce that, sorry?
Marjan.
How do I pronounce coral? Marajan?
Yes, that's perfect.
We've got a significant delay.
Yes,
okay,
we
cool.
do, yes.
So, yeah, and to and to Marajen. Maher, so looking forward to talking to you about AFCON, and you've already dropped a couple of real geography bombs on us. Hit us with one right now about your destination.
Yeah, so I was telling you, Jim, assuming you're in London, that I'm actually closer to you than I am the furthest point south in Algeria, and that I'm going to Abidjan on Friday evening, and that's further than Moscow would be at the current moment, and I do not want to go to Moscow in January. But yeah, so it just gives you a perspective on the immensity of the African continent, really, and how big it is, and how at times that can make travel difficult.
I cannot deal with those facts. Duncan, can you deal with the fact that so you're in Algiers at the moment, Maher?
Yes, sir.
And that is closer to London than the furthest point of Algeria.
As the crow flies,
As the crow flies.
I mean, I love things like that. So Edinburgh's further west than Bristol. The Tottenham Hotspur Stadium's the most northerly ground to host an NFL game.
Wow. Maher, did you know that one?
That one, no, I didn't know. No.
So you're saying that there's no NFL host city, no
In
NFL
America,
franchise situated in a more northerly, latitude, longitude? Yeah, one of those.
One of the two, yeah.
Than the Seven Sisters Road.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
the bleak north. So, yeah.
Damn. Jack Lang.
Do you want it?
Oh, go on. What have you got?
So if you went due east from New York City, which country would you arrive in?
Well, I know the answer to this one.
Well, your first guess was Helsinki, which is
you didn't say country at that
Oh,
time.
okay,
You
Finland.
didn't say country at that time. Carl, any geography trivia you want to throw at us before we let Maher talk AFCON?
No, let's get straight into AFCON. I'm
All right,
fascinated
let's
by
do
this.
it because absolutely. There's so much to look forward to here. Some huge clubs, and of course, some huge countries involved, and especially after the events of the World Cup back in whenever that was, 2022. It was 2022, wasn't it? Yeah,
Yes.
Back in 2022. So many storylines about this. Maher, can you start off by just telling us what you're most excited about in the Côte d'Ivoire?
Yeah, if you remember, last time we spoke prior to the 2021 AFCON, I was really excited to go to jazz clubs in Cameroon. This time around, I'm doing something a little more serious. I'm excited to go to the north of Côte d'Ivoire because the political history of Côte d'Ivoire is very intertwined with football. And in the early 2000s, there was a very real risk of a civil war. And the role that Didier Drogba and his teammates played in reuniting the country and keeping the country unified was absolutely massive. And so I'm excited to make that trek up north to do what they did, because for a long period of time, the country was split along a horizontal axis into the Christian south and the Muslim north, between the government-held south and the rebel-held north. And what Didier Drogba did after they qualified for their very first World Cup in 2006, this was in Sudan and Khartoum, immediately after the match, he's in the locker room. He grabs a microphone and the television crew and he says, "Can you please broadcast this message?" And he calls on everybody to lay down their arms. And he told me, I had the chance to interview him around the Ballon d'Or because he's an ambassador. He told me he didn't know that this was going to have as significant of an impact as it ended up having. But he told me they had actually played that clip on the nightly news every day for 3 months. And he thinks that it must have had some kind of effect, on the political climate in the country. Just 6 months later, he goes and insists that he takes his African Ballon d'Or up north to Bouaké, which is the epicenter of rebel-held territory, and he presents it to the people there. Another 3 months later, they play a friendly match for the first time up north in Bouaké against Madagascar, and they win 5-0. So Didier Drogba showed so much leadership, and I'm excited to go to that stadium, which is now called the Stadium of Peace, and speak to people about the kind of impact, the real-life impact that football had on their lives.
Oh, that's extraordinary. Hear so much about negative impact of football sometimes, but what a story that is. Ivory Coast, the hosts this time. Hosts don't generally do too well in this tournament. What do you think about their chances and the other favourites for AFCON 23? Can you give us an idiot's guide to the runners and riders?
Yeah, actually, you're absolutely right, Jim, about the hosts not doing well, but that's recently, in recent history. I think over the course of this is the 34th edition of the AFCON. I think we're at around 33%, about a third of the competitions were actually won by the hosts. But recently, we haven't had a host win since 2006. Part of that is due to, with all due respect, smaller countries hosting the tournament like Equatorial Guinea and Gabon. Part of that is also due, I think, to the fact that, infrastructure has become sort of standardized in terms of like the pitches and the hotels, and travel isn't as difficult as it once was, although it can still remain difficult. And so I think that is changing a little bit. That's a trend that is changing a little bit. But as for the home nation, I think top to bottom, they're probably the most talented national team at this tournament. You can list off the number of players that they have, and it's just so impressive. Seko Fofana, Ibrahim Sangare, Frank Kessié, Simon Adingra. They even left Wilfred Zaha at home. And it's not going to hurt them that much because of the amount of talent they have on paper. The question really is for them is, are they going to be able to combine this and make it some sort of coherent, cohesive unit and actually deal with the pressure of hosting this tournament and all of that? That's a question I can't answer right now. We don't know, but they're definitely considered one of the favorites. Other than that, I would put Morocco up there because of their performance at the World Cup. I would also put Senegal and Egypt there too.
Okay. What do you think about Ghana? Carl wants to know.
I do want to know. I'm very worried. I think it'd be quite difficult for Ghana to get past the quarterfinal stage from what I've made from the squad so far.
Yeah, that's probably my assessment as well. Ghana, for those that don't know, are being led by Chris Hughton, who obviously we know in the Premier League. So far, he hasn't really passed the eye tests. Ghana have played a little too cautiously, sometimes even at home against a team like Madagascar. He would play with two defensive midfields, and they would need like a last-minute goal to win that match against Madagascar at home. Away from home in Comoros, they lost, which is a difficult place to go. But still, no excuses. The thing with Ghana is that I think they're going to go as far as Mohamed Kudus takes them. And as unfair as that is on him, I do think that he has the psychological strength and real to really deal with it. He's somebody that when I speak to Ghanaians that know him and that have spoken to him, they tell me he really believes he's Superman. He believes he's as good as a Neymar or a Messi, or he has absolutely no doubt whatsoever in his capabilities. And we've seen that the kind of flying start that he's been off to with West Ham. We saw that even last year with Ajax, and during the World Cup, he's been in form for approximately like 18 months now. And so I think the problem is he's going to be their sole creative attacking output. Everything's got to run through him. He is capable of taking them far, but it's not really a recipe for success to rely on one player.
Okay. We didn't get many goals. Certainly the group stages of the last AFCON, there's so many huge scoring threats in this tournament, not just the likes of Kudus, but also Victor Osimhen, the reigning African Player of the Year with Nigeria. Mo Salah with Egypt, who are there in Ghana's group as well. What do you make of Egypt's chances of giving Mo his first AFCON title?
Just a quick note about the goals. We have to also remember that last time teams arrived sometimes just a few days before the tournament started because of the COVID problems, and some clubs were not releasing their players. So for the first match day especially, we really suffered. We didn't really see great football. I don't expect that to be the case this time around. Egypt looked good though. And Egypt looked good because they know who they are, they know who their best players are, and they know how they want to play. They've brought in Rui Vitória, former Benfica coach. I think he was also at Spartak Moscow and spent some time at Al-Nassr in Saudi Arabia. I think they tell me that Pep Guardiola wrote in his book that his Benfica side were one of the toughest sides to break down. I've never read Pep Guardiola's book. I don't know if you guys can confirm that or deny it. But the thing is, Egypt kind of want to stray away from that. Under the Argentinian coach Hector Cooper in 2017, they were really boring and defensive. In 2021, under Carlos Queiroz, they were really boring and defensive, and they would just drag these teams out into deep waters, into penalty shootouts, and they would win penalty shootouts. And it's not really what Egyptians want. Egyptians want to play a high-paced, high-flying style of football that they played from 2006 to 2010 when they won 3 AFCONs on the trot. And so Rui Vitória has been given a 4-year contract, which is unprecedented in Egypt. He's taken them until 2026 World Cup, and they asked him to be a little more balanced. And I think they are being a little more balanced. He's brought in some ball-carrying, passing midfielders like Imam Ashur, just 24, 25 years old, who I believe was at Midtjylland last year or the year before that, and is very, very talented and can actually play football in midfield. Because other than that, they would just use scrappy defensive midfielders and give the ball to Salah and wait for him to create magic. But their attacking line so in form. Omar Marmoush has been one of the best informed players in the Bundesliga with Eintracht Frankfurt. Mustafa Mohamed has been a real solid option for Nantes in France for the last 18 months. And Mohamed Salah this year, I mean, he hasn't lost a touch. He gets better as he ages. And I think he's been more creative as well. And I think we're going to see that side of him with Egypt. A little more of a creator and a little bit less of a goal scorer.
Just wanted to point out that Salah, for obvious reasons, and Marmoush as well, are both in the AFCON radar, which launches on Friday on The Athletic, featuring contributions from Mr. Carl Anker as well on Kudus.
Oh, nice. Okay,
And
excellent. The team that beat Egypt in the final last time are the holders, of course, Senegal. Are their prospects, Maher?
Yeah, look, Senegal are defending champions. I always put the defending champions and the hosts as one of my favorites. My problem with Senegal is that I think they're between generations. The spine of that generation of 2021 that won them the cup is Kalidou Koulibaly, Edouard Mendy, Idrissa Gana Gueye, Sadio Mane. And they've almost all made moves to Saudi Arabia, and they're all sort of getting to a level of form with their club play where we're starting to worry about them a little bit. They do have a lot of young, talented players like Pape Matar Sarr at Tottenham, players like Lamine Camara at Metz, who might not maybe you guys haven't heard of him yet in the Premier League, but he's the Young African Player of the Year during the CAF Awards, and he's been absolutely fantastic over the last 12 months with the Senegal under-23 side and under-20 side. He's going to be a star in the Premier League in years to come. So they have like young midfielders like that. They have a kid that's just 15 years old. He's not in the squad this time, Amara Diouf, who's going to be maybe Sadio Mane's successor. So there's a young generation of players coming through, and there's an older, calcified generation of players that are just not, maybe have lost more than a yard of pace. And I'm interested to see how the coach Aliou Cissé is going to navigate that. Is he going to over-rely on the older generation? Is he going to over-rely on the younger generation? Or is he going to find the perfect transition and alchemy and take them to another very deep run?
Okay. And Morocco, what do you make of their chances of continuing that incredible run at the World Cup that took them all the way to the semi-final defeat to France?
That was absolutely magical. I mean, that was a dream come true for many African countries. I have one problem with Morocco, and I've been saying this everywhere, and I kind of feel guilty about it, but Morocco were very much a reactive, out-of-possession side at the World Cup. They had less possession of the football against Belgium, against Croatia, against Croatia the first time, against Spain, Portugal, I think even against Canada, if I'm not mistaken. And they would sit back, compact, close those half spaces, and hit you on the counterattack. Okay, that can work in the World Cup when you're playing against sides that are expecting to have more of the ball. But is that going to work in the group stages against Zambia or Tanzania, even DR Congo? I'm not sure. And so I'm interested to see that difference, when Morocco has more possession of the ball, when they have to take the onus and break down opposing defenses with a deep-lying defending block. Are they going to be able to do that? That's what I'm not sure about. I think they're a side that's much better out of possession than in possession. And I think we might see a little bit of a difference in their performance from the previous World Cup.
Okay. Last 7 editions, Maher, have had 7 different winners. Who's your money on this time?
Pressure's on. That's a difficult one. My 4 favorites are Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Egypt, and Morocco. I think they're the sides that we have the least amount of questions of. I think those sides are expecting to at least get to the semifinals. If I were to put a pretty penny on one of those options, I'm thinking Egypt. I think the writing seems on the wall. Mohamed Salah finally needs that AFCON, that he's been chasing. They made it to the finals 2 out of the last 3 editions. And they're really in form, especially that attacking line that I was talking about, and they're very experienced in defense. So I think they have the right amount of, that's a cliche, the right amount of experience and young players, blah, blah, blah. But I really do think that's the case for Egypt, and I think that Mohamed Salah deserves one, and I think the football gods will smile down upon him and deliver him his first AFCON trophy.
Okay. It's writing on the wall you're after. You can't say fairer than the Egyptians, of course, because they pretty much invented that stuff. Excellent. We haven't mentioned Cameroon, should we?
Not as long as they have Rigobert Song as a head coach, and this might be harsh because he's an African football legend. I don't think we should mention Cameroon. He's shown that he can't manage a group. He sent Andre Onana home for wanting to distribute the ball to his defenders last time. He said, please kick the ball away, boot it away. And Onana said, no, I think this is the right thing to do. I've been doing it with Ajax and United. And then they got into a back and forth and he sent him home. So he can't deal with big personalities. He sometimes doesn't know every single player in his squad. He's had trouble pronouncing names. And Cameroonians tell me that it's his assistant coach, the Frenchman, Sébastien Minier, that's actually drawing up the side and drawing up the tactics. And he's just sort of a figurehead. So as long as they have him at the head of the national team, I'm a little bit pessimistic about the Indomitable Lions.
Okay. Maher, once again, Tahanini for your excellent news off the field, and very best of luck with everything when you get there to Côte d'Ivoire. We look forward to catching up with you as the tournament progresses.
Thank you guys for having me back. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to speak to you guys while I'm out there. See you, Carl. See you, Duncan. See you, Jack. Take care.
Oh, yes. I suppose if we're going to talk about goals, one thing that's fascinated me, Maher, is just how has Nigeria managed to have so many strikers at this point in time? Their squad runs very, very deep with so much attacking quality.
I would like to see a sociological study done on how Nigeria produces so many strikers. And sort of when I've seen this elsewhere on the continent, for example, with Cameroon. Cameroon have produced a successive line of goalkeepers since the 1980s. And it starts with Thomas Nkono and Joseph Antoine Bell. They are two contemporaries who are probably two top 10 African goalkeepers of all time. And they credit their success to this Yugoslavian coach they brought in the 1970s, who was more of a volleyball and handball coach. But he just taught them so much about, dexterity and using their hands that they ended up doing so well. Thomas Nkono creates an academy. I believe Carlos Kameni is one of his, academy graduates, and they pass that on. And not to mention that people in Cameroon are now see these superstars in goal, and they want to copy them, and they want, kids want to be the next Cameroonian goalkeeper instead of a striker. And so I think there's an element of that, of know-how being passed down, seeing the path, on television. I think there's an element of that as well. And even for Nigeria, they have a very long list of strikers, that precede the likes of Osimhen. That I think explains it a little bit. But it is absolutely fascinating to see how they produce so many strikers, and I'll throw a little wrench in it, how they score so little goals, because they've only scored one goal in each of their last two games in the FIFA international window against Lesotho and Zimbabwe, which, again, all due respect, they should be scoring more goals against those kinds of opposition.
Excellent. Great question and a great answer as well. Thank you so much for that, Carl and Maher. And have a great flight. Speak to you soon.
Thank you, guys. Speak soon. Peace.
Thanks, Maher. Excellent. Maher Mezahi there joining us ahead of his trip down to Côte d'Ivoire, where things get underway, as mentioned, 8 p.m. UK time on Saturday, with Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire taking on Guinea-Bissau. 8 p.m. UK time being in the Ivory Coast, Duncan.
8 p.m.
Incredible. Geography, eh?
Yeah.
Geography. The whole tournament in the UK, at least, is available on Sky Sports and also on the BBC, I think. Very good. Also, the Asian Cup kicks off this weekend. We mentioned that back at the start. We'll be keeping you abreast of events there. And we're having a bit of a preview on that, I think, next week. Next week, before the key fixtures get underway. That, though, brings us to the end of today's Totally Football show. Got another one coming up Sunday, reacting to, whatever's happened, basically. For now, many, many thanks to Duncan, to Carl, to Jack, Rachel and Charlie. You, listener, hope you have a great weekend, and we'll speak to you soon. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.